Let's talk about what to do when you're losing. Is it time to give up? Time for your coach to throw in the towel? No, never. Why is it so important not to give up in chess? Well, I could talk about it being one of the hallmarks of being a great player, or maybe a good life lesson, or showing good character, but I know what you want to hear. You don't want to give up in chess because there's always that chance your opponent will make a mistake. We're all humans after all. So let's first look at why we don't give up in chess, then we'll talk about what to do when we're losing. In this chess position, Black is completely behind. He's down a whole knight. It's actually a real Grandmaster game. Now, you might not believe this, but White actually made the worst move possible. No, it's not giving away the queen. What could be worse than that? There's only one worse move. I've never asked you to find the worst move before, but it was played. King to f4 was played, which allowed the queen to back all the way up to b8. A tragedy for White. But if you're Black, you're going to come running out of that tournament room smiling ear to ear. Okay, let's take a look at another example. Now you might think this would never happen amongst top players. Wrong. Ever heard of a guy named Magnus Carlsen? Well, yeah, he was playing Black here, and he missed a win. That's right, he missed a winning move. Come on, FunMasterMike. The world champion misses a winning move in a king and pawn endgame? What are you, some kind of stand-up comedian? Nope, it actually happened. Sure, it was a blitz game, but let's take a look at what Black could have done to win this game. Now, after king to f2, Magnus played the very logical h3, but amazingly that draws, because after g5, the king has to run back to stop those pawns, and now we just have a draw, because neither king can really improve his position, otherwise the pawns will come down the board. But what could Magnus have done? He could have played king f4. Not so easy to see why this wins, but hey, he's the world champion, he should have seen this. And after pawn to e5, now notice if you take this, Black will just take, and we all know about outside pass pawns winning. So White's best chance was e5, but after takes and e6, Black can win with king to h3. Now if you push the pawn, I'll move my king and we'll each have a queen at the end of the day, but Black has an extra pawn. And if White tries king to g1, then Magnus could have won by king g3, e7, h3, White gets a queen, but Black gets the last laugh. There you go. The best chess player perhaps in history did not win a winning position. That's why you don't give up. Okay, now that's transition. We know why we don't give up in a game, but what do we do when we are losing? Well, there's a couple things FunMasterMike can recommend. Number one, keep as many pieces on the board as possible. Number two, create confusion and complications. You want a messy position. You don't want simplicity, because the messier it is, the better chance your opponent might make a mistake. And number three, you know all those rules I teach you about not moving your f-pawn and all the rest? Well, you can throw the playbook out the window. When you're behind, you have my permission to break some of the rules in an effort to make a comeback. We're going to see some rules broken in just a minute. In this position, White's rating was over 2,000, and he played e3. Looks pretty normal, but whoops. Queen h5 check. Uh-oh, Mr. Bishop on g5. That bishop's not going to survive. Now, it'd be very easy for White to just give up. You lost a piece on the third move of the game. Not only did White not give up, White was actually winning in a few more moves. Watch this. Knight c3. Okay, Black simply wins a piece. Let's get some pieces out and start making some attacks. Queen a5, bishop d3. Now Black played a reasonable idea. You're supposed to trade when you're ahead. That's what Black does. But notice Black's also falling behind in development. White played knight to e5, and after take, queen to d2 pins the knight. White's going to get that knight back eventually. e6, knight c4, let's keep attacking the queen. Remember what I told you? You're allowed to break the rules. Here we go. f4, attacking the queen. Queen to g4, knight e5, attack her again. Is the position getting complicated? Yes, but if you're White, that's what you want. Queen h4 check, that's no problem. We'll just play g3. Queen hops back to h5. It's time to collect our knight. Now look at all the development White has in compensation for his piece. And after a5, Black's idea was to come out and pin the queen. White plays bishop to e2 to attack Black's queen. He plays queen to d2, that way he can stop the threat with c3, and then Black blunders with f6. We don't normally answer an attack with an attack, but remember, we're breaking the rules. We're behind. We have to do something. And actually, g4 wins the queen. She only has one safe square, bishop f3, and look at that. White went from being down a piece to winning a queen. White went on to win the game. He made the position a little more complicated. On to our next one. The last two positions are actually real-life FunMasterMike games. Now, if you count the material here, tell you what, I'll do it for you. I'm just down a pawn. This e-pawn is extra for Black. Not only is it an extra pawn, it is a protected pass pawn. Now, if I go about just making a bunch of trades, Black will have a very easily winning king and pawn endgame. So what I focused on here was being aggressive and creating complications. The first move, queen b3, is pretty simple, putting pressure on the base of the pawn chain and also putting more pressure on the d5 square. Now black made a boo-boo. Black answered an attack with an attack. What black should have done was keep things simple by just defending the pawn, maybe advance it forward or something. Black played g5. Now again, the normal rule is to blockade a passed pawn. That would suggest bishop e3 is a good move, but that doesn't create any complications or confusion in the position. Bishop to e5 does, and watch how things played out. He traded, but after takes, now his rook has to give way on the f-file. Takes, takes, and I now control the f-file. He took this pawn, which allowed me to invade. Then he invaded. Are things getting crazy? Yes, they are. That's what I want. Then I invaded on the 7th rank. He took my knight, I took his knight, and he thought he had a checkmate here. Bishop takes. Now if I step back to g1, bishop to f2 forks my king and my queen. But I have a really cool resource here. King takes bishop, and after check, my king goes on a walk. Yeah, we don't normally do that either. And after takes, king to h5, amazing. There is no reasonable move to check my king here, and if he can't check my king, he's got a world of problems. I've got ladder mate there, I've got ladder mate there, I've got the rook coming over on h7 check, and there's no good way for black to survive. Now, you might say, FunMasterMike, you got really lucky that he went for that. That's true, but the analysis was just complicated enough that my opponent made an error. Okay, one last one. Here, FunMasterMike is black, and I'm playing a grandmaster, and again, I'm doing really bad. I'm not down in material, but this d5 pawn's attacked 3 times, and this knight has got a supreme outpost on d6. Yeah, I just made that term up. The knight hopping to d6 would be super duper trouble for my position. Now, I sat there for a half an hour and I thought, how to defend, how to defend. I couldn't figure out a way, but then I remembered my own rules. I'm supposed to create confusion, and I did just that. I played rook takes e3, giving away a small amount of material, but look how crazy things get. When he takes, now I can chomp on this pawn, which stops his knight from going to the square d6. He took my pawn, and after I took and he took, he thought that he was going to take, discovered attack on my queen, but I saved my queen by playing bishop takes h3. Now my rook defends the queen. My bishop attacks this rook. My bishop attacks this rook. Have things gotten crazy? Yes, they have, and that's exactly what I wanted. I'll show you the very quick conclusion. He took, my king moved over. We made a little queen trade. He offered a trade of rooks, but I want to keep those guys on the dance floor. Rook to f8. He played rook c1, threatening my knight. I played bishop h6. Now if he takes my knight, bishop takes e3 would be a fork. So he played king h2. I threatened his other rook. Those bishops are just monsters. Rook to d5, takes, takes. I invaded again on the 7th rank. Boy, I love doing that. And after bishop to e3, he was not able to avoid a perpetual check. I went on to get a draw from a losing position against a grandmaster. I'll take that every day. So boys and girls, when you're behind, do not give up. Your parents will be proud of you. Your coaches will be proud of you. And what you want to do is create confidence and confusion. It won't work every time, but even if you save a couple of games out of 10, that's better than losing all of them.